I had some incredible, like, enlightening moments and insights and things like just pouring through recently. It always happens when I'm kind of having a bit of a what we might call a downward spiral. But I've definitely been very inward for the past few weeks. We had retreat and then we all got sick and then like yeah, just navigating some internal layers. But it always tends to be like when I kind of go a little bit more like hermit mode and I tend to like activate the investigator inside of me. Being a 5-1, that one line in human design is like the investigator, and that's where I've been at the last few weeks. And I got recommended the nonviolent communication workshop, which I've referred to previously. I'll pop the link below again for you. But wow, like it's so insightful, and nonviolent communication has been in my field for some time. I just hadn't really delved into it yet. And obviously now is the time, divine timing always. And what I realized, I made this connection that I really want to speak to today. And so a few months back, same thing again, like I had Alison Armstrong's book, Queen's Code in my field for some time. And I just like put it off, put it off, put it off. And then divine timing, I read the book and I read it in like 2 days. Like I just couldn't put it down. It was freaking amazing. I'll link that below for you guys too. And oh, it was just so enlightening. And it speaks a lot about emasculation and how we emasculate men and how to bring the best out of men and how to really be in harmony with like men and women being in harmony, understanding ourselves and them, and really setting each other up for success. And it's just transformed my entire life and relationships, especially with Liam. But I've also got my son and my daughter, and I want the best for them, and I want to shift a lot of these patterns that I received. And so this work is not just for us, but also for those that are in our lives. It's the ripple effect is huge. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, what I noticed though is like I read Queen's Code twice. Then I read Keys to the Kingdom, which is the prequel. And I read a couple like another book of hers. I went through all these workshops and I was feeling like I kept getting swept back up in old patterns. And I was like, fuck, this is like really hard to implement some of these things and to really shift into deep trust in men. So I had this wound around like men are not safe, men can't be trusted, and like this real like independent woman kind of vibe, like feminism kind of stuff, like just like I can do it all myself, and just this lack of trust in men and not feeling like I could fully rely on Liam or fully trust. And I'm like, really interesting to reflect on all the ways that he is reliable, all the ways that I can trust him, all the ways that he does show up, and just struggling to fully move forward on that journey of releasing like the emasculation tendencies that I had become aware of because they were so unconscious and I didn't even realize I was doing them. And then I became aware of them. But it was like these patterns that were really lodged in my system. And it's a process of embodiment work and healing and integrating and so much compassion on this journey. But I just noticed how I kept getting angry and frustrated and buying into these stories like he obviously doesn't give a shit about me, he doesn't care, because if he did, he would do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, oh, how interesting. And so I had another trigger recently where I got really angry. And this was a few weeks back, where I was like, oh, and I'm just really struggling to shift this anger. And I just get really curious when this happens. And I'm like, okay, what is here? What is this revealing? I had an embodiment mentor session with my mentor, and what came up was how guilty I felt for having needs. And therefore, I didn't ask for much because I felt too guilty and like it wasn't okay for me to have needs. And this was so deep. It was like quite unconscious in a lot of ways, where I just felt, and I had been becoming more conscious of it over the past few months, but more and more and more over the last kind of month and a half. But then in this session a week ago, it became very clear to me how guilty I felt for having needs. And so therefore I would ask for the bare minimum. And when that didn't get met, I would get furious. absolutely furious. And going through this nonviolent communication workshop, I realized, oh, like we all have needs. It's normal to have needs. If anything, it's unnatural not to have needs. And we all have like the same needs. And it's actually just developing this feelings and needs literacy in knowing how to express our feelings and needs and how to make a request rather than a demand. And that's very interesting, very, very different where I'm requesting and where I'm demanding, and where I'm subtly demanding and I'm thinking it's a request, but then I get angry because they don't do it. Noticing where we all do this. Like I asked the question, why aren't they doing it? Because I'm coming from an energy of demanding. No one wants to be demanded of. If you demand of someone, even if it's subtle, they feel it whether they realize it or not, and they don't want to do the thing that you want them to do. But there is a natural giving. There is a desire to give. And in the giving, there's a receiving. It actually feels good for us to give. So we're receiving the good feelings of giving and having our gift received by the other. That's the other piece, because it doesn't really feel good if we're giving and they don't receive it. They like reject it, or like, oh no, 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 don't worry about that. Don't do that. I don't need that. When our gift is being rejected, it doesn't feel very good. And so what I realized in this workshop was that there is a lot of pain that so many of us are holding on to from years of unmet needs. Many of us are holding on to this pain from childhood. And if we are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, that's a whole lot of years, a whole lot of time that we've been holding on to this pain from the original unmet need. And then it's getting triggered in our relationships. So say, for example, I didn't feel supported in childhood because of whatever happened. And now I'm experiencing that same feeling of not being supported in my relationship today. It's actually triggering the deeper wound and the deeper pain of that need of being supported, not being met in childhood. So it's actually very, very deep. It's very painful. And if we've been in a relationship for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and this need has not been met the entire time, it's like a building resentment, and it's building layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of that need not being met, not just once, but 20,000 times plus. Like, and it's really intense. And so if there is a lot of pain, it's going to be really hard for you to be open to hearing the other, what the other is feeling, what the other is needing. It's going to be hard to like say honor their boundaries because you're like, well, you don't honor mine. And there comes this like childlike, well, you don't do that for me, so why should I do that for you? Or we do the thing, and then eventually it gets to a point where we either blow up and explode because we finally get to our breaking point. We've just kind of like sucked it up and give and give and give and give and give. And then we get to this place of burnout. It can often end in disease, where we've just been giving and giving and self-sacrificing for so long that we end up with health issues, that we maybe get to a point where we don't feel love in the relationship anymore. We want to leave. And so it's like so many of these challenges and issues and traumas, like health conditions or relationships ending, divorce, all these things can actually be resolved if we heal and integrate this pain, the wounds, and actually learn how to express our feelings and our needs and our boundaries. And so when I got this piece of the puzzle, I was like, holy shit, like this is why I've been struggling to implement some of the pieces from Alison Armstrong's work. And it just was put in a way where I was like, oh, I get it now. Like there is so much pain from this unmet need that it's hard for me to hear the other. It's hard for me to hear his needs, his feelings, why things aren't getting done, why my needs aren't getting met, because it's not necessarily because they don't want to meet the need, but perhaps they have an unmet need that's preventing them from meeting the need that you have. So if we can actually start to hear each other, it's going to drastically shift your relationship and how you relate to the other and yourself as well. It's also going to be the permission for you to have needs, for you to express those needs, but in a way that's really beautiful, that's really loving, that's really authentic, that can really be heard by the other. Because when we're coming from trigger, we're often reacting emotionally charged, so we're yelling, or we're coming from manipulation, or we are judging, criticizing, evaluating, pointing the finger, projecting, you're not going to get your needs met coming from that energy. We need to actually have the clarity of what is it that I actually need? What am I feeling? Um, and being able to let the other know when they do something like an actual observable behavior rather than like making a judgment of them, like you're inconsiderate, you don't care, you're this, you're that. It's not helpful, and that's going to cause shutdown on their part, or they're going to lash out back. And then we end up in this conflict that's just constantly back and forth, or we get nowhere. So I wanted to share this. It was a really powerful insight for me. What I would recommend from here is looking into Alison Armstrong's work. So she's got a few books, she's got some workshops on Audible. She's amazing. Checking out that nonviolent communication workshop. It's incredible. You're going to get so much from these resources. And then come and join me for the Intimacy Masterclass. I think you'll get so much out of that. If you're resonating with these previous episodes that I've been releasing, you're going to get so much out of that masterclass. Plus, you get the added bonus of being able to ask your questions and share what's going on for you. Even if it's not necessarily a specific question, maybe you just want to share, like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. This is the pattern I have and I don't know what to do about it. Or this is what I'm experiencing in my relationship. This is the challenge I'm meeting, or the desire I have. Like, how do I experience more of this? This is what I really want in my relationship. Even if you just let me know where you're at, where you're struggling and what you're desiring, that's going to be huge for me and for this masterclass experience to really co-create so that I can really refine it in a way so that you get the best experience, you get the most out of this. So I'll pop the link for the Intimacy Masterclass below, and I look forward to seeing you there. So yeah, come play. Like, this is like, let's take a bit of the seriousness out of this. Yes, this is serious conversation. There is seriousness here, but can we bring more play and make this a really fun journey where it's enlivening and life-giving, and it's actually fun to do this work rather than feeling heavy and uncomfortable all the time, because that can create a lot of resistance to doing the work. But if we can make it fun and playful and really enjoy the journey and enjoy the people that we're on the journey with, game changer. So come play. All right, we'll see you there.